Minnesota Senate passes marijuana legalization bill, bringing it closer to law than ever before.
Nice.
And Minnesota for recreational, not just that medical half-ass crap. Legalizing recreational, not that decriminalized medical halfway that most of these states want to go with. But yeah,
Yeah, legalize it. Let's go.
legalized recreational. I think it's great.
Good for them. Good for
Good for them.
Minnesota.
Good for Minnesota. Good for the country.
I wish they would just do it federally.
So you're in favor of that being done federally. I'm
I
gonna
already
I'm
told
gonna
you
listen.
I'm in
No,
favor of. Well, yeah, I'm in
your
favor
stance is
of an adult
befuddle
being
me.
allowed to do whatever they want. Really.
Okay, your stances befuddle me. They spin me around in my brain because sometimes you're like, yeah, the federal government should do that, and then sometimes you're like, nah, the federal government can't do that and shouldn't do that, and leave it all to the states, and then it it
Oh, you gotta.
befuddles me.
So my stance is befuddle you.
Yes, sometimes you're like, hey, I sure do hate that federal government, and then sometimes you're like, hey, the federal government should just legalize all the recreational weed across the country, and it spins me around, and I'm like, wait, I thought you didn't like that whole federal government thing. I thought you liked that whole states' rights thing.
Isn't the federal government restricting the ability to purchase marijuana and smoke it?
Is the
That is
federal
a
government
thing that
preventing
the
that?
government is. Yeah. Well,
No, they
yes.
don't. They don't enforce it. I mean, it's still federally illegal in the state of Washington, but the federal government has chosen not to enforce that law
Yeah. So the federal
because
government should legalize it, and
okay,
then the state governments should also legalize it. And yes, those are two separate things.
okay,
But why do you think this is contradictory?
because a lot of times you really dislike the federal government doing things.
Well, the banning of a particular drug is a doing of a thing,
Okay,
right?
okay.
It's legalizing it is not doing a thing. This is a thing that I don't think should be uh or banning marijuana use, I think, is something that the federal government should not be doing.
The federal government shouldn't be banning things.
Not drugs. If you're an adult, just yeah, just do them. It's
And
just well,
and
which is
okay,
actually
okay, okay,
it's
okay.
like
All
that's
right,
exactly what my stance is on the trans thing too, right? Once you're an adult at 18, I don't care
okay,
what surgeries you
okay,
you elect to have done on you, and I don't care what hormones you choose to put in your body.
okay.
And I think that all of those hormones should be freely available to anybody who wants them. So if I want gender affirming care as myself as a man, I should be able to get some extra testosterone if I
Okay.
want to, right?
And you're okay
Same
with
the,
okay.
the same position is hey, if you want to smoke some weed, go for it.
And the federal government should not ban those things.
Nah,
Okay. Can the state ban those things?
they
Under
can.
they can.
I don't think they should. I would disagree with the bill, but yes, they can. Just like the
And
federal government can ban ban whatever they like, the marijuana and whatnot. Uh, they can do that. I just disagree with them doing that.
doing that. Okay.
I disagree
Okay.
with the ban itself. I don't disagree with their authority to do the ban.
Okay. So hypothetically, the federal government, I would say, is not enforcing that ban right now. It's still on the books. They're just choosing not to enforce it. I mean, the DEA and does enforce it whenever the fuck they want to. It's very selective, and I'm very unhappy with that. I suspect you would be as well.
Yes,
Okay, because you push for consistency a lot of times.
amazing that I like consistency.
I
You
know,
know,
um, and I'm not arguing against consistency, but I think it is wrong. I think it is a bad way to operate. That the federal
I
government
think
has a
that if we're
law that they
not going to
choose
enforce
not
a
to
law,
enforce it. Yeah, we should get rid of
yeah, I
it.
think if we're not going to enforce a law, then we should not have the law at all.
Okay, but that would take
So
fucking. I would have to go through the legislature, the Senate, and the House, and they hate doing things. Uh, so they're not going to do that because they hate doing things. They'd rather just ignore the problem than pass a law to get rid of it. Because passing a law to get rid of that federal ban of marijuana would affect their poll numbers. So they're not going to do that. Hypothetically, they did that. Federally, it's legal. You're okay with the state of Texas passing a law that says it's completely illegal.
you're using your words ineffectively again.
How do you figure?
I'm okay with the state of Texas passing a law that is illegal, that it's completely illegal.
Or if you're
Um,
not okay with that, then that's fine. You're not okay with it. If you think that's a
I
dumb
I
idea, or you
recognize their authority to do it.
okay,
So yes, they can and should be able to do that.
okay,
Um, I also have I also can disagree with the contents of the bill,
okay,
right? So
it
the way I think of it is
okay,
if I was in the legislature, would I vote for or against this bill, right?
mm-hmm,
That is separate from can or should
okay.
the government be able to pass this bill in the first place. Is this making a little more sense now?
Well, maybe, maybe. Uh, on this issue, I might surprise you by
Okay.
saying it would probably be. I would probably also be okay with the state of Texas saying, uh, yes, it's federally allowed, but in this state we don't allow it, uh,
Uh-huh.
because it's not really about human rights.
That is, I mean, it's a question of state rights, right? I mean, if yes, it's federally allowed, and in fact, lots and lots of things should be federally allowed that states could choose
Choose then to opt in and
not to
opt out
allow.
of. If that thing is human rights, I don't think the state should be allowed to opt out of it.
I think that you are turning this into a different discussion, that
Well,
where
I'm
you're
turning it
kind of
into a
going
states'
back
rights
towards
discussion.
it is a states' rights discussion,
Hmm.
but you're turning this into a trans discussion again,
Oh,
and
I could turn it into a gay marriage discussion if you like, or I could turn it into a marijuana discussion. I'm okay.
it's already been a marijuana
I know,
discussion. This is what I'm talking about.
I know, and we're slightly transitioning to states' rights. I think that the state has more of a right to ban marijuana than they would gay marriage. And the reason I've gotten to that sentence is because gay marriage is a human right, and smoking weed is a choice that you can make, but it's not really a human right.
That's weird. Marriage itself is not a human right,
I would suggest that it
but
is part of human
I,
rights.
well, no.
It's not quite as solid human right as uh, murdering minorities. You know, hey, the state
What the
voted
fuck?
for murdering minorities. I'd be really against it. That's a very huge human right issue,
Well, that'd be a
right?
violation of
Lots of
the
things.
right to
Right.
life, wouldn't it?
Okay, great. It would be a violation of lots of things. Okay, but now we're saying these minorities can't get married. You're still
You have
violating the rights a little bit.
a
And
really weird conception of human rights, I think.
I do? Do I?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and marriage is not a human right. So
I think it
I'm
is.
questioning your choice of words. Is
I
is
I do have a
really
slippery
where I'm at.
Are you
It's
suggesting I have a slippery understanding of the English language? Because that's probably true.
well, it's exactly like how I'm very careful when you say words like should this be a thing or
Hmm.
should the government be able to do this, right?
Hmm.
And it's like they have the authority to do it. I do not have to agree with the bill to say that they have the authority to do this, right?
I
Um,
can
so
comprehend parsing
that's
those out, sure.
right. So I'm parsing things out here,
Hmm.
and
We're just parsing them
I
in different
do
places.
I do the same thing when you say or when you list things like marriage in the same category as human rights. They're not the same thing. Marriage and human rights are two different things. Human rights are things that are exactly like you're highlighting here are
Hmm.
inherent. Um, all human beings, right? So we have the right to life. We have the right to our liberty. We have the right to, at least according to Thomas Paine, it's not enshrined in our Constitution. We have the right to property,
Hmm.
but it was changed to the pursuit of happiness, right?
Okay.
Um, no, marriage is not a human right. It's a um, marriage is actually fundamentally it's a religious institution that we
Ah,
have
horseshit.
encoded into law.
It's not a religious organization. It's not a
It
religious.
is a religious
No,
institution.
it's not. Can you get married without a church?
You can now, but
Can you get married
that's
without the state?
also yes.
No, you cannot.
Uh-huh.
You can't get married without the
But
state.
because the fact that we politicized marriage and made it so that you have to get this document that says that you're married to somebody,
You have to get a
and
license from the state.
uh-huh. I'm telling you, marriage is foundationally a religious institution, even if we have taken the religion out of it and made it a state issue. It is fundamentally religious. It's not, but that's a different argument from is marriage a human right? And the answer is no.
If uh, a man and a woman are allowed to get married, but a man and a man aren't, you have changed, you have discriminated against them, which I would suggest is against their human rights. You have changed the rules and the laws based on their gender.
Well, I'll tell you this: I don't think that marriage should be a political institution. It's a religious one. So
Okay, well, then we're going to go on to a
I
completely
don't think
different tangent with that situation, and I will stop bringing it up.
I don't think that. I'll just put this out there. I don't think that marriage itself should be something that you should be going to the state for to get a certificate and having different taxes and different rules and whatnot surrounding you. Marriage is a religious institution, and the fact that it is political, I think, is wrong.
Well, that's what we're talking about 2 weeks from now, because I am on completely the opposite side. I'd say it's only a state institution, and it only should be a state institution. And historically, it's always been a state institution.
I'll
Even
put it
a
on the list.
thousand years
I would
ago.
actually rather talk about gun control in 2 weeks.
Okay, rather talk about gun control in 2 weeks. Okay, I'm putting it on the list, but below gun control. Okay, okay, that's fine. I think even 1,000 years ago, it was still a state issue.
Nope, not 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, it was. You had to pay a
Um,
dowry, and it was invented to determine whose children were whose, so that we can pass things down to them and know who owns the next bunch of things. That's all state stuff. There's nothing religious about your oldest son getting all the cows that you owned when you died.
I think that that stuff was obvious to them back then, and the only
Not if
reason
you're
it's a
not
state
if you're
thing,
nailing
the
nine
only
different
reason it's a
people.
only thing. Well, you didn't do that
Well,
back then either, did you?
they did,
Because
and the tribal
they
tribal societies did.
these were people of God. You know, they didn't go around with they didn't have Tinder. They didn't go fuck 20 different girls every week. You know,
Of course they did. They just lied about it. Of course they did. They cheated on each other all the time in the biblical era, and the one that he was married to, even though he did nine other girls on the side, the one he's married to and has a child with that one, that's the one that gets his property when he dies. This is all marriage has always been a state institution.
I would bet you that that wasn't actually regulated. And there was no tax when the son took that over, which the tax is the entire purpose of having this uh, whole or of politicizing it in the first place. I mean, yeah, we have to say you got this because your dad died, and we're gonna tax you on it. We have inheritance tax, right? If we didn't have inheritance tax, then it wouldn't matter who gets what
Of course it would.
to the state, at least. It would matter to the people, of course, and they
What
could
matters to
fight
the
over
people?
it.
Okay, great.
But
Okay, the people would fight over it, and so we would have. If the people are fighting, we have to come up with a rule or a ruling, and that is rules and rulings belongs to the state. Regardless, I'm sorry I dragged us off topic. Are is smoking marijuana a human right? Do you think?
no,
Okay, I agree with you. I don't think it is. Is transitioning to another gender a human right?
no,
Okay, I'm a little bit. I think it's a little bit closer to being a human right than smoking marijuana.
I think that this is a all or nothing question.
What? You can't be close to human rights?
Is something a human right? Answer is yes or no.
You are, man. No, that there are 1,000 shades of gray.
Not when it comes
There,
to something with a very specific definition.
maybe
Human
that's
rights include the
maybe
right to
that's
life
the
and liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and well, I don't agree with that last little bit and many
okay.
more.
So that's
But
what I'm saying. There's a million billion shades of gray, and that's the reason we can't just come down to yes or no answers.
it is a yes or no answer, though, isn't it?
Only a Sith
Is
deals in
something a
absolutes,
human
man.
right? Yes, no. Well,
There's a million shades of gray.
it's treason then.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, um, expression. They call it gender expression. I mean, do they have the right to a gender expression?
Yes. Well,
Okay, great.
yes.
So it's a kind of a human right. Uh, if so, and it's I'm not saying it's hard and fast. I'm saying it's tangential, and similar. If I have the freedom to wear a dress and express myself as a woman,
You
and
do.
I think that hormone replacement would increase that expression and give me more freedom in that area, then stopping me from doing it would be against my human rights.
I've already told you that I
Okay.
don't I don't support the banning of any hormones for
Okay.
anybody.
Okay.
Well, for any adult.
Okay. So it
So I
is.
don't know what you're arguing with me
Oh,
about.
it is tangential to human rights. I asked you if transitioning was a human right. You said, is
No.
transitioning a human right? It's not, but we just discussed how getting it's close, and you said there's no such thing as close.
I can be in favor of anyone getting whatever hormones they want
Mm-hmm.
as an adult, while still not recognizing the receiving of those hormones or the use of them as a human right.
Okay. Is it
That's
tangential
again
to
two
human
different
rights?
things.
Is it right next to human rights? Is it bordering human rights?
No.
No. Okay. I think it's very close to human rights. It might not be specifically 100% a human right, but it's right next to it. Right next to it. Very close by.
I guess I'll ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
do you think that using those hormones is a human right?
Using them?
You asked me the question, so I'm asking you: do you think that getting and receiving hormones, or receiving and using hormones, is a human right?
Mostly. Again, shades of gray. I deal in shades of gray. That's why I say should and could and would, and it's bordering on a human right. Yes. It's closer.
So
It's closer to a human right than smoking marijuana. So it's somewhat close to human rights. I think if someone says I would like to do this and you stop them by law, you are in fact hampering their freedom of expression with discrimination. You are discriminating against their expression of their freedom. So it is a violation. It's a small violation of their human rights. There are degrees of violations of human rights, and I would say that the law preventing, to answer your question, sorry, I went a really long way to get there. Creating a law that prevents people from taking those hormones is a violation of their human rights. Yes.
I think we fundamentally disagree there.
Right. And I'm
Um,
going to suggest it's because you're more black and white. Yes and no.
I mean that is the nature of the world, unfortunately.
What? No. The world is painted in gray paint, my friend. Gray,
Ah,
shades of gray
it's
from top
that's
to
the
bottom, baby.
that's the mush of the liberal values that you're that you're hooked on there. It's
Absolutely not. That is what I see when I look around. Shades of gray everywhere. I didn't make it that way. I didn't
I wonder, do you
push
think
for
that
such a
that
thing.
maybe that's the difference between the left and the right
I'm
is
starting, over the past 10 minutes, I've been starting to think so.
possibly
Uh,
is
I didn't expect you to say yes or no on human rights. I thought you were going to have all kinds of wiggle room.
nope.
Um,
No, because human rights have a very specific definition. It's life, liberty, property. And you don't agree with that, do you?
I think that's entirely limiting.
Those are the natural rights though. Human rights, natural rights, same thing. Life, liberty, property are the rights that we have afforded to us. Uh,
But you don't, I mean, the freedom of speech, where does it fit under those three words?
liberty.
Under life and liberty? Okay. Can you suggested that I was vague several times last week. Can I suggest that that is a vague sentence? Life, liberty, property?
They are. It's not vague at all, but they are very
You know how many
expansive
expansive. You know how many things I could fit under
in
the
their
word
meanings.
liberty? Great. So if you've taken away a trans person's liberty to take hormones, are you not impugning their human rights?
I already told you that I don't support uh, banning hormones.
So is transition a human right? You said no. It's not a human right. But I can fit it under that liberty, life, liberty, liberty specifically. Real easy.
So no, again, transition is not a human right. Liberty is. So
Liberty is a human right.
yes,
And if you take that liberty to transition away from them, you have taken away their human right.
I already told you though.
You're being inconsistent here.
I'm being totally consistent.
Liberty. Okay, I'm going to walk you through it. All right. Liberty is a human right. Right? You're on board with this? Liberty is a
Yes,
human right. Okay. Transition to another gender is not a human right. And
liberty is a human right.
uh-huh. And you're saying yes to that, but when I ask you is transitioning to another gender a human right, you said no. Now,
It's not.
okay, if the state prevents you from transitioning, they are they are preventing your liberty to do so. They are taking away your freedom to transition. The state has made a law that says you cannot do this thing that you were free to do and you feel is your liberty. So transition is liberty. And preventing that transition is taking away their human rights. Or are you going to
No,
suggest that I'm twisting the definitions here?
you are missing at least a few things here.
Okay.
So you have the liberty to transition, and if we restrict that liberty, then we are violating a human right.
Right. That's
We're not
the
violating transition. We're violating the right to liberty.
right.
Um, and again, I'm fine with people taking whatever hormones that they want once they're adults capable of making that choice.
Okay.
And taking whatever surgeries they want.
Okay.
Uh, so I don't really understand what it is that you're getting at. Then is I've already
Okay.
told you I don't support bills that restrict these freedoms for
Well, because you keep
adults.
saying that transition is not
It's
a
not.
human right.
It's not.
But
Liberty
I'm
is.
telling you it fits directly underneath that liberty definition. Are the things
It
under the liberty definition human rights?
no.
No. Okay. All right. That's what this is a distinction that I'm not comprehending that you're making. Liberty is a human right, but the things that can be described as liberty aren't human rights. Are they
No, liberty
adjacent?
itself is the human right.
Okay. Are the things under the word that fall under the word liberty adjacent to human rights?
Adjacent to human rights. I don't think it's meaningful to be human rights adjacent. I think it's
It has no
meaningful.
value. It has no meaning. All right. Maybe I should make a draw thread. I don't know.
I don't think that's a meaningful question. I mean, adjacent to human rights.
Adjacent might be the wrong word. Um, Underneath the liberty umbrella, imagine. Okay, you're on board. Liberty is a human right.
Uh-huh.
That is a
Yes,
vague
it's
word.
been that way since
I know.
1776.
Great. That
Or
is a
actually, since way before that. But
okay.
go ahead.
The things that you have the liberty to do aren't human rights, according to your definition.
No, they're not.
Okay, then the word liberty has no fucking meaning.
Yes, it does.
I can't imagine how it does if the things that I use liberty to describe aren't going to be considered human rights.
Well, I'll ask you
Is
this.
is liberty a large umbrella that encompasses, or a Venn diagram or a sphere that encompasses a lot of things? Liberty? It encompasses actions that you can take. Yes.
No, liberty has a very specific meaning,
Okay.
and it does not encompass other things. It's totally different. Yes, you should be able to do what it is that you want, but having all of these other things, yeah. So this the state of being free from society, from oppression, restrictions, etc. Yeah, you have the right to liberty.
Okay. Follow me here. My way of life.
Refuse. You're going to lead me down the dark path.
Right. My way of life is to transition to the other gender. And the authority of the state is oppressing me.
I already told.
So the state is taking away liberty. The state of Montana is taking away liberty.
Hold on a second. I've continued to make the distinction. I support your ability to do whatever you want when you're an adult, right?
Okay. Yes. And if the state took that away, let's imagine you
That's not what
accept
this
that.
is, though, is it? This is for
If the
people who are
state,
not adults.
hypothetically, if the state took that away, would they be
I'd be
impugning
against it.
your liberty? Because they're
Yes.
impugning liberty. They're impugning your human right.
Okay. So
So
what? I
transitioning
already
is
told
a
you that
human right. That's what I'm
no,
saying.
it's not.
Oh my God, you just agreed with all the steps, and then
Here's the thing. No.
I've
So
taken
you're
psychic
missing the
damage.
last human right. The last human right is property, right?
The last human right is property. Okay.
Now that doesn't mean that we have to give you property. It means that once you have property that you've worked for and you've gotten,
Uh huh.
that belongs to you,
Uh huh.
that we don't take it away,
Mhm.
right? Unduly.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, would be exactly uh, part of why I was so upset last week.
Okay.
But the last one would be property. Now, the surgery, the hormone treatments and whatnot,
Mhm.
those are things that somebody had to produce, right?
Mhm.
And they cost money,
Okay.
right? The money is a representation of the value that we've um, put forth into the world, and we were compensated in the form of money. It used to
Okay.
be the bartering system. Um, but it's not a human right because when something is going to, or because to say that it is a human right would entitle you, therefore, to the those procedures and that those hormones and whatnot. I don't believe that you're entitled to them. You are entitled to your liberty. If you can get them, do it. But I don't think that you are entitled to it in the same way you're entitled to liberty, because that is somebody else's property. That's why it's not a human right.
You took 7 steps away from the actual discussion.
I'm telling you why I distinguish between liberty and transitioning as a human right.
Because somebody had to make the hormone.
Because the things that you need in order to transition
You're
are
adding.
somebody else's property that you are not entitled to.
Nobody said we were going to give it to them for free. Nobody said
Well,
that they weren't going to pay for the transition. Nobody said that it had to be funded by other taxpayers. We're not
I
even
what I'm
discussing
what
that.
I understand that, but you asked me why I distinguish between the human right of liberty and transitioning as a human right.
Uh huh.
That is why I distinguish between it.
Because somebody had to make the hormones. Somebody had to cook them in
Because
a lab.
the process of the transition requires that you uh, have access to property,
And you
right?
paid for that property.
Having liberty itself is not the same thing as uh, going and taking and using property and transitioning.
If
It's
I
just
stopped you from
the
buying, if the state stopped you from buying something with the money you have, they said, no, you are not allowed to buy that. Are they impugning your liberty?
yes.
Okay, great. So you're all over the road. Um,
I'm not all over the road at all.
I
I'm
think
very
you're
consistent here.
no, not in any way, shape, or form. I have the money and the to buy. I have the money to transition, and the government has stopped me from doing so. Are they harming my liberty?
Yes.
Okay, great. So they're harming my human
You know why
rights
these answers come so fast is because of the consistency that I have, because I
because it's
know
my
exactly
human
the answer to
right.
your question.
It's my human right to buy that estrogen and transition.
Um, no, it's not.
No, it's not. See, that's the thing that keeps bugging me. We keep describing. I'm describing to you all these human rights and stuff like that, and you're like, no. We get to that one last step, and you keep saying no, and I can't comprehend it. I
No,
don't know
it's
how you
not your
get to
human
the
right
no.
to it's not your human right to buy that estrogen because it also is within the liberty of the seller, the person you buy it from, to refuse to sell it to you. Um,
Then they're oppressing your human rights.
no, they're not.
Somewhat. Okay.
That's their property.
The
They
state of Montana is oppressing and restricting
no, they're
by their
not.
authority the way of life, the behavior, and the political views of its trans citizens. The state of
No, it's not.
Montana is absolutely taking liberty from a minority. And nothing you've said has swayed me on that.
That's fine, but the state of Montana is making it the law in Montana is specifically for minors, right?
Yes, they also have liberty. They also
They
have
they do, but
rights. They also have
we
human
do
rights.
recognize by nature of the fact that we have a term for it, minors, and we have an age for it, under 18,
Uh huh.
is that they're actually not really capable of making certain decisions.
Right, which means they need guidance and help, which they get from their parents, their guardians, and their doctors.
This is an entirely different discussion from the question of what is a human right.
No, it's
It
not.
is.
The state of Montana is being oppressively restrictive toward that minor's way of life, behavior, and political views. They are taking the liberty from these minors. The state is taking liberty, definitionally, I'd say. I mean, I talk a lot of shoulds and talk a lot of shit about what may or may not be and is this might be adjacent to fascism. The state of Montana is literally, definitionally taking uh, the liberty away.
I do think that the state restricts liberties
Mm-hmm.
in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I don't disagree with the state's authority to do that.
Okay.
In fact, I think that I guess we'll put this another way. You support gun control, so you
Certain
are
types of it, sure.
advocating. So you advocate for the restriction of the liberty to purchase certain firearms,
Yes.
or to purchase, or for certain people to purchase firearms.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, are we both inconsistent?
No. We
Well
both.
then, it's
I'm not being consistent, suggesting that guns kill people. It's literally their purpose.
it's
It's what they do.
so the restriction of liberty
Mm-hmm.
is a power that the state has.
Yes, I would agree to that. Yes, it is. Now, what are they restricting? Are they restricting things that are human rights? Are they restricting things that are harmful? Are they restricting things that will hurt others? Then I would usually on board for their restrictions.
Okay, and transition uh, practices and transition research is relatively recent. We don't have a lot of long-term data on people that are transitioning and whatnot.
Because it gets destroyed by fascists. I'm not suggesting that's what you are doing or who you are. I'm saying for a fact that the Nazis burned down, the actual Nazis under Hitler burned transgender studies. They burned down a whole hospital based on trying to comprehend and understand transgender people.
Okay, go back.
Sorry.
I don't want to. I don't care about
Okay.
the Nazi book burning thing.
Okay, great.
Um,
Well, it wouldn't be new. We would have more knowledge on the subject had the bad people not destroyed that knowledge.
if in 20 years
Mm-hmm.
research shows that a huge number of people that transition now regret it, and they have had life-altering changes to their bodies as a result of hormone therapies and whatnot, would you then support banning transition care?
If the science said that this is severely harmful, yes.
Okay.
If the
I'll
science
say that
says,
I don't think that we have enough data to know yet.
okay,
In 20 years, we will.
well, no, you'll say
But
that in 20 years.
but
We don't have enough data in 20 years. But there are
But you
people who
said
are.
that the state. What I'm getting at is you said that the state should have the right to restrict things that hurt people, right?
Yes.
And I suggested at the very beginning of all this
Hmm.
that Republicans are not doing this maliciously. They're doing it because they view uh, transitioning as harm.
Hmm. They are being disingenuous when they tell you that. Suicide risk reduces 73% in transgender non-binary youth when gender-affirming care is applied. This reduces their suicide by 73%. That's science saying that it isn't actually more harmful to transition. And the Montana governor will ignore that data. He will
Going to find out.
disregard that data. Doesn't matter how nice the data is. He is being, I think, uh, disingenuous when he says this is to protect people.
I don't think it is. I don't think this is malicious. I think it is intended to protect people, even if you think that that's um, a misguided
Okay,
intention.
okay, that is a discussion that we could have, and we can look at the stats and numbers and percentages.
Set it for the stream that we have in 20
Sure,
years.
that's fine. That's fine. 20 years from now, we will do that stream.
As I recall, actually, there was a bill we talked about a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now,
Hmm.
that we were very upset with because it included a provision that if somebody gets transitioning surgery as a minor and then regrets their transition, they can sue the doctor up to 20 years later.
Yeah, that's a shit way to handle it. Yes.
Well, if it's all just if it's all just helping, then why would they sue? Or why would anybody regret it?
Because that doctor has now taken on a gigantic risk that is
Well,
far outside the
uh,
regular risk. You're not
well,
allowed to sue
what's the
20
risk though?
years.
What's the risk though? If it's all helpful, then what
Hmm.
is the risk the doctor's taking? I mean, they're
That
going to sue because they're happy.
they're going to sue because they're poor or they're desperate. They're going to sue because they regret a thing 20 years after they've done it. You can't sue a doctor for shit that happened 20 years ago. That's insane. You signed a waiver, said do this thing, and the doctor said, hey, I think we do this thing. Then you do the thing, and then 20 years later you sue the doctor. It's insane. That will cause doctors to hesitate, and in that hesitation,
Well, you were a
fewer
minor though.
people will. Right. And in that hesitation, you will start the puberty that you didn't want. In that hesitation, you will have to go through more hoops. In that hesitation, you will have to go through cross more hurdles to find a doctor who's willing to help you. It is a hurdle. It's not a that thing that we talked about last time. That 20-year you can sue the doctor 20 years after they transitioned you is a small hurdle. And if you put enough hurdles in between the child and the transition, maybe they won't make it. Maybe they'll stumble. Maybe they won't get there. And there will be fewer trans people, which is the Republican plan. Fewer trans people. If there's two hurdles between uh, uh, a cis person and a trans person, there will be more trans people, right? If there's
I'll say
three,
this:
if there's 300 hurdles, there will be fewer of them.
I think that for minors there need to be a certain number of hurdles to be cleared. Yes.
I'm okay
For
with
adults,
having some hurdles. Yes.
for adults, I think that less less hurdles is usually ideal. So
Okay.
for adults, go ahead. For minors, these are people who are not capable of making choices yet, and we do have to have a certain number of hurdles in order to make sure that we are not we're not causing them harm
I can
before they become
agree
adults.
to that. There should be hurdles. Those hurdles should be between the doctor and the patient, not the governor of Montana. The person who's putting the hurdles in place ought to be parents, uh, doctors, uh, experts, psychologists, um, maybe nurses can put some hurdles. I don't care. All the people that have to deal with that person, somebody who has a stake in that person, should be putting those hurdles there, not the governor.
The governor and the government is making rules for those hurdles, aren't they? I mean, that is what the government does, is it puts those rules in place.
They, yeah, that's what they do. They put rules in place.
Okay. You're saying that the government shouldn't be the one to
No, I'm saying
make
that
rules.
the government is putting rules in place that stomp on the liberty of these people.
You've already agreed that they have the authority to do that, and they should when they
Yes,
can,
they
in certain
should when they
instances.
can and when they think it's harmful on certain instances. This ain't one of them.
Oh, this is.
Absolutely not. Yes, the government can stomp on your liberty, and they can prevent you from doing certain things, and they should prevent harmful things from being done. But I think they are going to ignore any help that that transition provides and only point out harms because they are bigoted towards it. They don't like it.
We fundamentally disagree on the motivations, I think,
I know.
of these people. But and I don't think that we're ever going to come to an agreement on that. You think that
Okay.
they're malicious. I think that they are seeking to protect people.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that's pretty
And
much
that's
it.
the end point that we keep coming to is
Yeah.
you and I'll leave off with your definition. You think that they are trying to protect people.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, hi. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button, press the subscribe button. Uh, if you want to tell me how right I am, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to tell me how wrong I am, leave a comment too. That's good. Um, this is just kind of a hobby for me, so I appreciate you coming by, giving it a watch, and pressing the YouTube buttons. Thanks.